If it's you, you'll know it because it's joyful, it's happiness, it gives a sense of peace and calmness. You'll know when it's yourself, as in the soul self, because it has this balmy feeling of goodness that comes with it. Whereas the ego self is only looking at it, is only interested in tripping all that up. No, it's got a vested interest because the ego will disappear. It will cease to be. It will be swallowed up if the soul self becomes too manifest or realized, shall we say.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. Today, through the magic of the internet, we go just outside Glasgow, Scotland, to talk to Jenny Light. She is a psychologist, an author, and a teacher of meditation and yoga. It's a wonderful talk. But before we get into that, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, little bio on myself. There's a donate button if you'd like to support the show through Patreon. Thank you very much. You can also listen to the show on YouTube, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and there is The Exploding Human Facebook page. So my guest today, as I said, is Jenny Light, and you have to listen a little more carefully if you're an American because there's a Scottish accent happening, but I understood everything. And she is an absolute delight, and we talk about many things in the realm of meditation, consciousness, spirituality, and we talk about her two books. The first book she wrote is about how she healed herself from chronic fatigue syndrome. That book is called Living Lightly, A Journey Through Chronic Fatigue Syndrome. And she has just released her newest book, Awakening the Lotus of Peace. And we get to talk about that and how our world is changing for the better despite some of the many challenges that we have. Jenny is a delightful person. I loved talking to her, and I think you will love listening to her. This is Jenny Light. Today we travel to Glasgow, near Glasgow, to talk with Jenny Light. And here she is. I can see her. She is smiling. She's in a great place. So what time is it there now? About 6 o'clock at night? Because it's
6 in the evening.
Yeah, so I'm at 10 in the morning. So we're in different time zones, different times of the day. Yet through the miracle of the internet, we can connect and have a conversation about all things meditation, spirituality, Kundalini. I want to know. You hear the word Kundalini, and I don't even really know what that means fully. I mean, I know it's a type of yoga, but it's something else. Can we start with that?
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking, prior to the beginning of the show, I was talking about my childhood. My childhood was, I feel unique. I mean, there's lots of people who've got unique childhoods, but for me, it was recurring expanded states of awareness when I was aged 5, 6. I can relate that to the fact that we moved house when I was 7, and all this was happening before I was 7. So, I mean, that's how I can age myself in it. And I had no words to describe this great power that would come surging up my spine, and until I felt as expanded as the room, and I turned the room blue. It was usually at night that it happened, and it would be spontaneous. I would have no words to describe it. And while this great there was a sound that went with it, this great thrumming sound. But in this expanded state, I couldn't move my physical body. I was in this different state of being, and then it would recede, this heat would recede back down the spine, and then I was able to move the body again. And as a child, I didn't have words to say to people what was happening, but this sort of thing that I knew as an adult was the Kundalini experience. And it recurred quite a few times during, I did a spiritual healing training course when I was in my 20s. That was in the 80s. And this same experience, whenever I worked with energy, this same experience would surge up the spine and over. And it usually meant at that time that I ended up flaked out on the floor with the world spinning round about me. I wasn't able to kind of manage or control it. I don't think you can really control it, but certainly you become used to become in that state so that you can function. But I've spoken to lots and lots of people who have had similar, Kundalini awakening experiences. And I've got a blog on my website, living-lightly.co.uk, that is lots of people communicate with me about their own difficult to manage Kundalini awakenings. But they're all punctuated by a sense of not being able to operate right in the world in the same way as those people that operate in a third dimensional reality, and how they relate to the world. It's how you used to relate, but you can't do that anymore because you're kind of operating in a different paradigm. But it comes and goes until you've got some control over it, or until you've made the changes in your body till you're operating. I haven't got really words to describe this. This is all experiential. This is not because I've read stuff on it. This is all, how I'm experiencing it. But now I'm a kick in the shirt of 60. Things have, I can be in that expanded state and still operate now. I can communicate, I can operate in the world, but that wasn't how it was at the beginning. So there was quite a lot of shifting of realities and learning to bed into that experience in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah, I've read about this experience. I have not had it. I've had what I would call spine-tingling experiences,
Yeah.
but not what I've read about the power of the Kundalini experience emanating from the base of the spine up, I think is how it was described in some literature that I read. And you said, this is interesting to me, that as a child, you had an experience that you couldn't describe to other adults around, and I think we all have that sort of connection to something bigger, however that is experienced as a kid. And I had the same thing. I thought I was the only one that knew it or that felt it. And it wasn't exactly what you're describing, but I remember thinking, I got to keep this a secret because no one's going to really understand it because no one had ever talked about it, and so I kept it to myself, and it didn't happen a lot, but once in a while.
But I think we inherently know when something is precious and private. We know when something's precious, and we contain it within ourselves because spiritual truths that come to us, these insights, and I'm not necessarily meaning Kundalini, but spiritual insights that we garner are leaked away. We're become like a sieve if we just tell it to all and sundry. There's the things that are meant to be kept precious and private and contained within the heart. They are our soul truths.
I love that expression, precious and private. That's really a good way to put it. It's not secretive. It's precious. It's precious more than it is secretive. Did you have any relatives or people, that people near you that you felt understood this at all, or you were just a unique
Yes,
kid?
yes, indeed. In my Scottish Presbyterian school, I think I was the only kid in the class that wasn't christened, because my mother and father believed that I should make my own choice. And they were christened, but they were busy out exploring Buddhism, Hinduism. I don't know if you've heard of Findhorn community up in the north of Scotland.
No, spell that. Can you spell that for me?
Findhorn, Find, and then Horn,
Oh, Findhorn.
Horn.
Okay. No, I've never heard of that. Okay, something I learned today.
It was a kind of hippie community that developed in the 60s, and they built. It was Eileen Caddy that had she had conversations with God, telling her to build this community on this patch of sand. It's sand dunes really at the edge of this town, the Findhorn town, and a whole community's built up there now. I mean, there's thousands of people all in this community, but my mother and father were there at the very beginning. I don't mean to say they lived there, but they visited a lot, and they encouraged us to think for ourselves and also to have a religious inquiry. I remember when I was in school and I was 7, and the teacher was doing this religious education lesson, and it was a whole lesson on what do you think God looks like? And everybody was saying, I think he's an old man, and he sits in a throne, and he's got this on, he's got a robe, and he's got a really long beard, and I was inside, I was like, no. And then when she gave us the crayons and the paper, I got a yellow crayon, which was the closest to the gold I could see in my head. And I did big rays of light coming out from the centre. I covered the page in gold. It was just a yellow crayon, but to me it was the nearest to gold. And I was out in 2 seconds at her desk. And she said, "What's that?" I said, "It's God." And she said, "No, it's not." I said, "Yes, it is. God isn't a person. God is light." And her face opened and shut a few times, like her mouth. She had nothing to say. And she said, "Oh, well, just go and draw something else."
Wow.
But that was the start. That was the start of me challenging authority. It's like, no, all the things that are being taught, we have no concept of God. God is so all-encompassing that to have to try and contain that in the persona of a like God was a human. God is so infinite and vast that light is the greatest, or sound is the greatest that we have to meeting that great presence. I challenged authority on various occasions because we were taught to think for ourselves, and I found that really, I'm really invaluable. I'm so deeply grateful for that as from my childhood.
I love your parents, I have to say. Just for that alone, that is a beautiful thing to teach a child. Do you have siblings? And
yeah, I was the eldest.
Yeah, are they similar to you?
No.
No. Okay.
No, we were given the choice of going vegetarian, and I just knew it was the right thing to do. For ages, like for a couple of years, my mum was cooking a meat meal and a vegetarian meal until we all went vegetarian. But we were given choice, and I like that.
I like it too. One of the things I've told my kids over the years is one of the most limiting things you can do, and probably destructive things, is to live your life to please other people and to think for yourself. And if you're pleasing somebody else, that means you're probably not pleasing yourself. And it's really, it's a rough way to go, because you find yourself feeling uncomfortable a lot for reasons that don't need to be there.
unless that pleasing other people is inherently within your soul nature, as something that you want to do, because pleasing other people and helping other people makes us all feel good. It's our soul course as opposed to the ego course. There's a fine balance in that, but yeah, I think doing we maybe hit on the word destiny here, right? Do we have destiny? That's a question I've been pondering for a while, because the older I get, the less destiny I actually think we have. The less everything's, shall I say, there's less free will and at the same time less destiny. It's if there's perhaps no real plan for us. Although I do know that there's certain trends that we have in life. We can look back and see that things happened and that was influential on the next things coming. But it's an open question, Bob. What do you think? Destiny or free will?
I think we come in a certain way when we're born. I think there's a certain amount of genetics and that are there, and I think there's a history of family history and ethnic history. I think all that stuff lives in the cells and the DNA, and some of that is comes through the ages. But I also think that we do have to make certain choices. We get to experience things, and then we vibrate with them or we don't. And if we vibrate with them and we're honest about that and we go down those paths, that is, if you want to call that destiny or just intuition or just, following truth, there's a lot of, that part, I think is sort of, you ever have a thing where you go, I always knew that, that I would, I always knew that I wouldn't ever have a corporate job. Let's put it that way. It just never appealed to me. Even when I was a kid and I'd see, men and women in suits going to office buildings, I was like, I'm not doing that. Didn't even know what it was. It just didn't feel right. And then I would see people that were, older than me, and they were a little more freer and loose and fun. I was like, that's the kind of person I want to be. And I didn't have to ask. I felt like, like you were talking about that teacher telling you how to think. I always, sometimes I would question it out loud, and sometimes I would just say it inside myself, and I'm not doing that, and I think that, I don't know what the difference is between someone that is malleable to authority and someone that is willing to say, that doesn't ring true to me, and I'm not going to do that. Whatever that resource is, whether that is it's just there and, it isn't beaten out of you. And I'm not saying physically beaten, but societally beaten out of you or not. I don't know what that difference is, but I think that, I'll put it this way. Let me put it this way. Now you really got me going on this. Thank you for that question.
It's a deep one.
It's a great one. I know, I don't feel it. I know that I've been here before. Yeah. This is not the first round. Yeah, and I knew definitely. So, and I've talked about this in my podcast before, but when I was born, I had an experience that I always remembered, and what it was going from this very dark place, but not negative dark, just dark, no light, and this tremendous surge of energy being transported to a new place. It was like I don't know how it was, like a whoosh or some kind of noise I can't do, because it was a silent noise, but a noise nonetheless. Yeah. And the first feeling was, this is really scary, because it was so powerful. And then there was an inner laugh, and the phrase, "Oh yeah, this again." And and I liked it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this again, and I laughed. It was like big laughter. internal laughter. And so I always remembered that experience.
This is you prenatal?
Either prenatal, or I just always took it as my birth.
Possibly your birth, yeah.
Yeah, because
it could have been the moment of conception, because there's several camps that think that actually at the moment of conception, lots of soul, there's a great light in the ethers, and lots of souls that are compatible make a great rush to get there. I mean, it could have been the point of conception, or it could have been birth. But that's very interesting, because most people don't remember that right back to that moment.
Yeah, I didn't tell anybody that for a long time, and then I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to talk about this with, when I feel like safe enough to do it. Now I don't care at all, but and I mentioned it. I don't know who I mentioned it to. I don't even know if I ever told my parents. I don't think I did, but that's a powerful thing. And I had this girlfriend when I was in college. And she said, when I see you walking down the street, you seem like, how did she put it? Like, there's something in your eyes that you're an old soul or something like that you've been here a lot. There's like a knowing. And I didn't take it as like an egotistical thing on my side, but she just said it. I didn't ask her about it. I didn't bring it up. It was just, she said it to me. And I was thinking like, oh, okay, well, so maybe that is the case. Maybe I've been here so many times that, I don't know. I mean, I've certainly veered from that feeling a lot as a human, done a lot of human stuff that were not very wise. I'll say that.
But do you ever, do you remember any of your previous lives?
Yeah, only because I've done hypnotherapy, past life regression. Yes, I've done 3 of them. So I do. Yeah, I remember.
I haven't done it. I haven't done any of like hypnotic stuff, but spontaneous memory.
That I have not had.
And I don't mean to say like it's a thought concept. I mean to say that it's you're in it. You're in it. You can feel what it felt like in that time. You can almost smell the smells, hear the sounds, that you're immersed in the feeling of that, and also the weight of the role that you had in that time. That's how it is for me. They just spontaneously pop in, and the kind of most recurring one has been, and this was from a child. I would be sitting. I could only take to a past life memory, but I'd be sitting cross-legged in a kind of robe, and I'd be gazing down this valley, like kind of jungle valley, to hills in the distance. But I'd be sitting meditating, and just knew in my self that it was India.
Mm.
At that time I hadn't actually been to India, but I just knew that was me in India. It was the way it felt. It was so embedded, so grounded in it.
I totally get that. I mean, a lot of people might hear this and go, "These people are strange," but we are.
People are strange. Well, we're stranger even than we can, possibly conceive. As long as you're putting a human consciousness into it, you won't be able to conceive quite how amazing the universe and life really is. It's only through meditation and moving into higher states of awareness and the insight that comes with them. The human brain can't possibly, and the human mind can't be elastic enough. It can only imagine, but it can't possibly know. It's only in the expanded states that we move into a state of knowing.
Yeah, that's my experience, is like that you can't really put words to it, but it's certainly worth pursuing. And the amount of time I spend meditating, which is daily, is super valuable to me. It's like food. It's, it is food to me. The days I miss doing meditation and miss that time are not, they don't feel as good, and they don't feel as right. And I feel like I've almost, this is probably too strong of a word, I feel like I've almost betrayed myself in that
no,
day.
I'm totally on the same page. That's exactly how I feel, and I'd rather go without a meal than miss meditation. You're right about food. It is food. It's when we come into our true selves and we're feeding on the cosmic rays. We are feeding, but we're being our true selves in that moment, and then we have to act in the world again because we're in a human form. We're here to do a job, whatever that job. I think we've all got primary agendas and maybe secondaries that we came into this world to, to work through, to learn, to grow. Some of us have got world roles, that are really going to be influential in the new world that's coming. But I think that our meditation is the most important thing that we do. It's more important than any of the earthly things.
And you teach meditation. I know that's part of what you do.
Yeah.
How do you approach that when you have new students? What is the beginning for people?
Well, I teach new students about coming to quiet within the body and being aware of the spine as an upright column of light. So I get them to kind of imagine that they're looking down that column of light and spine. We're talking about the astral spine here, which occupies the same sort of space as the physical spine. And for a beginner, it's all about learning to sit still, to use the breath as your vehicle. Right, so your breath is the bridge between the physical and your astral body, your more expanded states of consciousness. The breath is the vehicle of which we then make that transition. I teach them how to do simple yoga breaths. They're not complicated. It's more about being mindful within, an extended exhale. Mostly the people that come to me are people that are a wee bit more experienced, and I just allow the universe to send the people that want to come.
Yeah.
I don't do big advertising programs. People just contact me out of the blue when the time's right, and allow the universe just to. I say the universe in a sort of, like hippie way of talking about, God and all it is, but I just allow things to come to me, and I think it doesn't have any effort then, Bob.
Yeah, it's a very simple concept again, which is if you change your inner life, expand your inner life, then your outer life changes automatically without very much effort at all. When I'm vibrating a certain way, I'm attracting or even repelling certain other types of energies that it just doesn't sync up.
Yeah.
Which brings me to something that I read in your bio that you sent, was that you do some sound healing with tuning forks.
Yes, a lot of the tuning forks are inaudible unless they come close to your ear, and then you can hear that they're thrumming. You can hear it, but a lot of them are inaudible, and then they're placed on the body, and you can feel that vibration coming through. A lot of people actually can't tolerate, because of different bodily, disabilities like osteoporosis. You can't put the force on the body because it's too powerful, but you can work on the auric field, and people go away without it having any psychotherapy or any invasive treatments, and they go away and something's cleared from them. Something's cleared physically, something's cleared energetically. You can hear the discord. It's really interesting because when I'm working with the tuning forks around the body, I can feel stroke here when I go through an area of density. So when I'm doing the kind of clearing around the body to start off with, I can feel and hear where I'm meant to go and where I'm meant to start. And it's only afterwards somebody will say, oh yes, I have had trouble with that knee for a while, or I've had trouble with that digestion. I never really thought to say. But you can clear an awful lot out the body, and it's just pure sound. It's so powerful. It's very profound treatment.
I find it fascinating, and I don't know. I keep getting drawn to it in some way that I feel like I need to learn more about it. And I don't know. There's something stopping me. Some sort of a fear of making a commitment to something that may not work or something like that, even though I know it does.
It does work, but what I'm intuiting, picking up from what you're saying there, that maybe, right, I'm putting a question out there to you, Bob. Maybe in a past life you did work with sound, right? And there's a fear because you maybe got persecuted for working with sound.
Well, I played. I'm
just going to lay it out there, see if that resonates.
Well, because even in this life, I played in bands for a bunch of years and made no money. And it was a great time, really fun, but it sort of ended with like, I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore. Could be this life. This is not playing in bands. I don't know, but I'll think about that. How long did it take you to sort of become adept at using the tuning forks?
It's fairly recent. So I learned the tuning forks roughly about 2014.
Oh, okay.
And I was resistant to taking on any modality apart from teaching yoga, teaching meditation, and spiritual healing. That was all. I was like, I don't want to be jack of all trades and master of none. But I was so drawn to sound. In fact, I'll tell you why I'm drawn to sound. When I was in Peru, I went in Peru 2003, and it was when I was in Machu Picchu, away up there in the Andes Mountains. They've got all of these temples. I mean, it's a site of temples. And they've got one particular temple that's open to the sky. It never had a roof. And it's got these trapezoidal recesses, right? Which if you hum and, just make sound into these recesses, they are about 6 foot wide at the bottom and narrower at the top. And it kind of intuitively came to me that this was a hospital and that people would lie down on these ledges and sound would be played to them, because the resonance, see if you hummed into that recess, the sound would come back, it would amplify, it would incredible waves of sound in that one area. And later on that trip, I had a sound healing session. So it was a whole bunch of us all lying on the ground in a big room, and it was traditional instruments, like so the Nazca pipes and flutes and all these other things and drums, and the shaman went round and vibrated the sound over the top of us. Well, I mean, that was so incredibly powerful. I mean, I've never had a sound healing. That was the first time. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's really something in sound. And I found myself weeping. And I had a spontaneous past life awareness of myself in a deerskin dress. And I was picking herbs and putting them in a little bag. And I was the healer for the tribe. I was obviously in North America, but I was the healer for the tribe. And in that tribe, I was revered, and I knew the name of every single plant and its medicinal properties. And I was crying because I don't have that knowledge in this life.
I think that type of knowledge was just commonplace, probably pre-medical pharmacology and all that stuff that we've mutated into. And when you think about that, people healed each other and healed themselves with plants that grow in the ground. It's pretty interesting stuff that has just it is coming back again in certain ways. I'm sure the pharmacology industry doesn't love that, but
well, there's something to heal whatever ailment you've got, and you don't have to walk very far. There'll be something, even in cities. There's tenacious weeds coming up through the sidewalk, and there's going to be something that's going to be of healing benefit. Not very far from where you live, there's something everywhere. You don't have to get herbs from South America or something from Africa. There'll be something on your local area, and we did all know that knowledge at one point. But in this life, I only know rudiments. I've only got wee bits that my mum taught me. So, like dandelions are really good for urinary tract infections. Nettles are good for they're an iron tonic, but also, just a feel good, whatever you're needing. Various other ones, like we call it sticky willy, but it's cleavers is its real name. It's like goose, what's it called? I can't remember its other names, but it's like little balls like Velcro that stick on your clothes. Do you have them at that in America?
You're not talking about cotton, are you?
No. I'm talking about, it's a plant. It's about 3 feet high.
Oh, I'm sure we do.
It grows as a weed, and it's got like Velcro on its long, thin leaves, and Velcro on its little ball seeds, and that's how it disperses its seeds. But it's great for clearing the lymphatic system. So if you pick it and put it in hot water, then you're clearing the lymph, clearing the liver, clearing toxins.
Okay. I love the name Sticky Willy.
I know, it's terrible.
It just sounds good. It just sounds, especially the way you say it. Sticky Willy.
Oh, goodness.
So now that we're talking about healing, look at these great segues I'm pulling off here today. We're talking about healing. I know I read in your bio again that you had chronic fatigue syndrome. And that you were able to heal yourself and from that. How did you get it, do you think? And how did you heal yourself? It's fascinating to me that I know a number of people that have had it just because of lifestyle and stress and diet and all these other factors. But what was your story?
I worked on a high energy tariff, right? I was always pushing myself to do. I've always had this feeling like from a child that there's an awful lot to be done in this life, and we can't fanny about and wait on, it's like there's no time like the present, it's do it now. So I was always push whatever I wanted to do, an idea in my head, I was up out the seat and getting on with it right there and then. That's the kind of person that I am. There's no prevarication, it's just right at it. And I was a teacher. So I was in education for about 20 years, and in 2010 I hit a wall because I was doing, I'd been taking a 2-year secondment to teach. My specialism was teaching reading. So I was doing this closing the literacy gap secondment in secondary schools. So that's from age 12 and above. Mm-hmm. Where there were still some kids that were a reading age of under 9 years. Oh. So you really, to be literate in society, you need to have a reading age of 9 in order to fill in forms and whatever. But some were under that. And in secondary, they're just sort of immersed in a curriculum that doesn't teach them reading. So my job was to go in and do testing, take out kids that needed work and train up teachers over a 12-week block. So there was secondary teachers were trained in the reading methods. And then I kept that school going and moved on to the next one. So there were 9 secondary schools in the authority, and I was to get around them all. But the 9th one, I was burnt out because I was still I was still, supporting the other 8 schools. Anyway, whatever. I got burnt out in 2010, and I remember I couldn't understand why, what was happening. But I remember this particular morning, I sat on the edge of the bed and I looked at my face in the mirror, and I was ashen, I was grey. I couldn't even recognise the face in front of me. It didn't look bright and light that, my usual self didn't look like me. It looked like all the life had gone out of me. And I sat there and I couldn't process what order to put my clothes on. I couldn't work out what came in what order, right, from the underwear outwards. I couldn't work it out.
Uh-huh.
And I went, there's something not right. There's something not right. But I drove to the school that day, and then I ended up bursting into tears because I couldn't work out what I was meant to be doing. And I got sent home. But that was it. I went in and out of teaching for another year or so, but anyway, I got a diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome. And when I've heard that, my mother's a healer, by the way, and she used to have loads of people that came to her with chronic fatigue syndrome or ME, and I knew that how life changing it was. So when I heard that diagnosis, I started crying because I thought, oh no, that means I'll not be able to do anything anymore, and it's, we've kind of talked before about how important meditation is, and that's my big thing. I thought, if I can't even get the energy to do that, what's the point in being here? I'm not saying this in a suicidal way. It's just like, I was like, oh no, this is terrible. Yeah. But I mean, a week of like lying on the bed with the room spinning round, and I thought, no, I'm not a victim. This label is not going to define me. How can this label possibly define me? It's not me. I'm not this body. That label is not me. And I thereby resolved to get myself better. So it involved 5 hours a day lying on the bed, like looking at the light. I was sort of drinking in the sunlight with my eyes until after 5 hours of lying prone, I was able to do something later on in the day, some small task before retiring back to bed. And I changed my diet entirely. Now, I was always vegetarian, so I was eating very well. I didn't eat very much in the way of processed food, but I decided I would do 100% raw diet. And, within a fortnight of eating raw food, I had incredible energy. I was back to, zingy Jenny Light again. Lots of energy. And I took, this is in my book, Living Lightly, A Journey Through Chronic Fatigue Syndrome in ME. But basically, in a nutshell, it was through positive thinking, i.e., this doesn't define me, changing my diet to raw food, meditating in 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute bursts, because that was all I could concentrate for before the brain, I couldn't process language. It was mouths were moving. I couldn't understand what they were saying. It was that bad. Positive thinking, raw food, meditation, spiritual healing. I went to a friend who was a spiritual healer. My sister ran there once a week, and I got zapped by spiritual healing, and that really boosted my energy. He didn't do anything except just walk around me and lay hands, on me or around me, and I went out feeling, $1 million. And the fifth thing was the omegas. It's a product called Veg EPA. Now, I don't sell the stuff or I'm nothing, to do with the company. I'm just telling people because it works, by a company called iGenis, and it's very high-end extracted omega 3, 6, and 9. The one that normal processes don't get to because it's too rough a process. Anyway, I'll just say that it worked. 4 a day for the first week, down to 2 a day the second week, and then 1 a day for a couple of years. and that healed my frazzled nerves in the brain. The synapses become, there's something denotes of, this is only what I intuit, but there's something denotes of the actual nerves in the brain itself. And so for anybody else out there, that's my 5-pronged approach to healing yourself from chronic fatigue. But you have to be prepared to rest.
That's an amazing story, and I would recommend reading her book, Living Lightly. That's the title of the book?
Yeah, Living Lightly, A Journey Through Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, ME. That was my first book.
The interesting thing about this, there is a short period of time that we're alive and we want to get things done, which you sort of rode that train really hard and seem to ignore the other side, which is, the dichotomy of being a human being, of rest and connection with something else. And it's so easy to just go one way or the other and to lose the balance. It seems like you have it now. You're writing books, but you're also meditating. You're doing both things.
Yeah. Well, I always meditated, but I also then pushed myself hard, and I knew that. Sorry, I'll not say I knew. I know now that what I was pushing with was the ego self, right? Rather than the higher concept of the soul self. I was pushing with that, and that was what burnt me out.
I always wonder about that the ego pushing for getting things done, accomplishment, even the term legacy, which I find can be just an ego-driven thing too. And it's a odd balance, or an odd sort of, not odd is not the right word. It can be confusing to ask yourself, am I doing this for service to other human beings, or am I doing this to be recognized and to be considered amazing in some way?
I totally agree. And I think that until you have grown as a spiritual being, right, until you've grown to recognize when and the multifarious ways in which the ego dupes us, into thinking that I'm doing this, and I'm doing this because it's the righteous thing to do. And that could be for the benefit of other people, but there's, as you rightly pointed out, there's also the ego getting its sneaky wee pat in the back. It's getting its recognition. It's getting, acclaim. I've done the right thing. I've been a good girl here. So, I'm getting the, put on a pedestal, and part of the ego self really loves that.
Yeah, competitive righteousness. I win.
So I think the path through it all is to meditate more. Just keep meditating, even if you're not getting much in the way of inroads, just keep meditating, because it quantifiably changes you over a period of time.
Well, it's, I have days where it works really well and I feel, amazing and connected and calm and energetic at the same time. Then I have other days where my mind is just all over the place. It cracks me up sometimes. Like, did I just actually think that? That is just so off. But I try not to judge it, but I'm intrigued by my mind. I try
to say to people, when the mind throws in something like that, then that's not you. That random interrupting thought, whatever it might have been, is not you. That's quite clearly the ego self flinging in something, which is a spanner in the works to your, meditation practice or your meditation progress. And to see it for what it is and just say, well, that isn't me.
I really like that, that it isn't me.
If it's you, you'll know it, because it's joyful. It's happiness. It gives a sense of peace and calmness. You'll know when it's yourself, as in the soul self, because it has this balmy feeling of goodness that comes with it. Whereas the ego self is only is only interested in tripping all that up. No, it's got a vested interest, because the ego will disappear It will cease to be. It will be swallowed up if the soul self becomes too manifest or realized, shall we say.
I'm just taking that in. I really.
That's fine.
I had somebody say to me once, and it confused me, completely confused me. It doesn't now because it's basically what you just said, but they said to me, "You're not your story." And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I mean, these things that happen to me, that is me. No, it isn't. And I was like, well, what is? And it's what you just said. And I do have, events that have happened, obviously, and they've influenced me, but it isn't necessarily the me that you're talking about or the you that you're talking about. If somebody's listening, yes, can people? You have a website, correct? People can find you, and
yes, it's living-lightly.co.uk.
Okay, say it again, really slow and clear for the American ear. It was really good.
Yeah, okay.
I got it, but I know people are going, "What'd you say?"
Okay, it's living.
Yeah.
Living hyphen, that's a dash. Living hyphen lightly.co.uk.
Dot what?
Co.uk.
Say that. Oh, co.
co.co.uk.
Okay. All right.
If they just look up Jenny Light yoga meditation,
Yeah,
do a
do
Google
that, folks.
Yeah, I'll pretty much come up there. My new book, it got launched on Friday. It's a new book of yoga meditations called Awakening the Lotus of Peace. So this is the search for inner peace within. So it's really, in a nutshell, how to meditate using the yoga breath, using intention, and find that inner peace within. And again, as I said previously, I try and keep everything in simple terms that is very clear and concise. I don't believe in flowery language when, one word will do. But it's beautifully illustrated with mandalas throughout.
Oh, yes, that is a beautiful picture. That alone is...
I've just opened it, chapter 4. It's called Opening to Receive the Rays of Peace. So this chapter's got the idea that not only are we peace within, but we're actually immersed in peace. And we were talking earlier about drinking, like meditation is like food. We're drinking in those rays of peace and being open to receive. If we're a closed vessel, then we have no opportunity to drink that in. We can't become so tight and enclosed within, particularly in the heart. But basically, all of the chakras we can become tight and not open to receive. And it's by opening to say, well, I choose to be open to life and to all of its opportunities. And we're talking here about the highest possibilities coming to us. And the meditation in that chapter 4 is about opening to these rays of peace and drinking them in to awaken, to start to awaken that peace within our own heart, our own inherent state of being.
Beautiful. I will put a link to that book in the description of this show so people can just click on it and get that book.
It's really doing really well on Amazon at the moment.
On Amazon. Good. I'm glad it's doing well. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. It's a beautiful thing. More people doing what we're doing and trying to do will make for a more peaceful
but
world.
This is the way the world's going, Bob. We were talking about earlier about things that we couldn't say before when we were children because it wasn't the right environment.
Yes.
You would have got ridiculed. You might even got sectioned, psychiatrically sectioned.
Yeah.
They would have hauled you away kicking and screaming in a straitjacket in the olden days. But things are coming into the open now, where, I don't feel like I'm an oddball anymore. I don't know about you. Sorry, I don't mean to call you an oddball. But
no, I know what you're saying. I
I felt that I stuck out like a sore thumb. I was different from everybody else, but then maybe everybody else feels that too. We're allowed to be different.
Well, I think people are afraid to be different too, because they, who wants to be teased and made fun of or ostracized? No, that happens a couple of times when you're young. You just go, I'm keeping that a secret. I'm not going to say that again. And then you get a little bit older and you meet other people that aren't afraid, and you start to get less afraid, and then you're not afraid, and then it just happens. And then we meet each other. And the tentacles of the internet is this is the greatest part about it to me, is that I get to meet some of the coolest people I've ever met in my life that aren't afraid and that are willing to talk about these things very matter of factly. It doesn't even seem out of the ordinary to me for many years now, because I've known so many people that are on a path of being a seeker, and that's why I do this. It's just that. There's no other, bigger reason. I certainly am not getting wealthy.
But happy and healthy is more important than wealthy. But you're allowed to have wealth too. There's this sort of holier than thou thing of, money being a dirty word. But money's just energy. You're allowed energy too. You're allowed it. Yeah. It's all about being open to receive. Marianne Williamson's Course in Miracles and various other people have been extremely influential on allowing us to be open to, be who we really are. And this is the age of Aquarius, so here
we go.
yeah, you're allowed to be what you are. Whatever you feel that you are, just express yourself. And isn't that lovely? I'm not trying to be glib here, but we're moving into a new age and things are changing. I just keep the positive view, and I see where it's going into that state of peace that we're going to be in about 200 or 300 years from now. So we're in the kind of foothills of that, making that progress into a far better society. But we'll have to go through that change. I just think, well, I'll not be here physically to see it, although I might be in a different form. But that is coming, that lovely state of being, that, more peaceful way of living. I just think it'll be lovely. And I hold to that. I try to allow that future peaceful state and, of harmony and humanity to come into the present time. Because really there isn't any time either. We're all living in all time zones, all time frames are synonymous. We tend to see it as this linear. Very linear. But in actual fact, that future, by tapping into it, you're bringing it into the present. It's coming.
Just enjoy.
Yeah, I love your laugh, Bob. It cracks me up.
I just love to laugh, and I love when other people laugh. It's just always had that since I was a kid. It's one of my favorite things is laughter. But I'm glad you appreciate that. I loved having you on this podcast. I can't wait to listen to it again when I edit it and get it out there. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, I've really enjoyed every minute of it.
Same here.
And talk all day.
I know, I could. We may have to do another one down the road. And
that would be great.
And if anybody who's listening can send me an email about what Sticky Willy is actually called, I need to know that. I do need. It's a Velcro-like plant with little sticky, not sticky like glue, but sticky like little
Velcro. It's not jaggy. It's just, it sticks to the clothes so that the plant can disperse its little furry balls.
It's not Jimson weed, is it?
I don't know what you call it.
Is this Sticky Willy?
It's cleavers, is what it's called, or goose.
Okay. Well, you botanists out there, you plant folks.
Goose grass or something.
Okay. Well, I'm going to find out.
It's
Somebody
got lots of
will send me an email, and this is how I'll get the information. Then I'll email you. I don't know why. I just, I pick up on a little phrase and it just cracks me up. Sticky Willy. Have a beautiful day. I thank you so much. Buy her book, both books, 2 books. You can't get enough of Jenny Light. There's no such thing as too much Jenny Light. Much appreciation for you folks tuning in to The Exploding Human. Check out the website, theexplodinghuman.com, the YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. Once again, big thanks to Jenny Light for a delightful talk. Check out the description of the show, and you can find links to purchasing her books and finding out more about her on her website. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much.